Is there a progression from copywriter to marketer to ultimately business development consultant? I am Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. Yes, there is a procession from freelance copywriter, employed copywriter, to marketer, to business development professional. First off, if you're a copywriter and you want to just freelance copyright, that's the entry point for the majority of individuals who discover that words can be persuasive. And of course, words on paper allow you to do work once and get paid many times. But there's such a volume of copywriters out there. There's going to be some point where you have enough business, so you have a system in place to get new customers, a system in place to generate leads, a system in place to convert leads to long-paying clients or projects, that you're going to discover that there's more work to handle for good copywriters than there are for not. And ultimately, you're going to bring on copywriters. You're going to bring on additional staff, such as an administrative assistant. You may even have a bookkeeper. And that's when you graduate from freelance copywriter, from employed copywriter, to some kind of marketing consultant. See, a lot of times the customer will say, hey, I want a sales letter. But when you sit down and do a discovery and you talk with them, you'll find out that they don't know what they want. So the customer says they want a sales letter, and you say, well, what are you selling? And they're like, well, it's this product. Well, tell me what the benefits of the product are. And they're like, well, and they describe all the features. They don't know necessarily what it is that they want. And so they're going to ask for a sales letter, a press release, a lead generation piece, and they won't have the skills necessary to judge whether you're doing good work or bad work until it goes in place, if they ever even use it. So as a copywriter, sometimes there's a lot of churn where you're creating copy and you're creating 5 press releases, you're creating 2 sales letters, and it's once and done. As a marketing consultant or marketing agency, maybe to take the agency path, you're going to have 4 or 5 copywriters on staff, and you're going to build out copy campaigns. You're going to build out marketing activities. The syndication of work allows you to get more billable hours, because as a freelance copywriter, you can only work so many hours during the day. You're trading dollars for hours. But my point being is that when you talk with a client and you say, okay, great, you want a sales letter, how many leads are you getting every month? Because you're going to have to put the sales letter up in front of somebody. How many impressions do you get? Are you driving paid traffic to the sales letter? Are you mailing the sales letter? Is it online, offline, or are you going to use the sales letter as a script? They're going to go, after a while, their eyes are going to glaze over. They're not going to know what's going on. So you're going to spend a lot of time, if you're not just writing what the client asks for, and you're really driving down to determine what would work best for the client, then you're going to need to be a little bit more than just a freelance copywriter. A freelance copywriter is almost piecework, and it is nothing wrong with this, by the way. You got to start somewhere, but when there's directories of a certain role, and there are platforms where you can get them by the dollar. Basically, you can hire copywriters from anywhere around the world to write first drafts for you. And very often they'll write them for like $10. They'll write a piece that I would charge $25,000 for. They're going to charge $15, $20, $30 because they're just getting started. There's this myth out there that when you're just getting started, you do the work for whatever price you can get. That's because people who run agencies want freelance copywriters to write the work for cheap so that they can bundle like 3 sales letters and 4 lead generation pieces and deliver to a client a package. That's really what you want to move towards. So again, if you're just getting started, being a copywriter is fine. Being a freelance copywriter is fine. Supporting a little bit of marketing, but you'll start discovering as you get experience, the clients are asking for things that aren't going to set them up for success. And if you want a repeat client, you need to set them up for success. And that very often takes a little bit more effort, and you only have so many hours in the day. So you need to have an administrative assistant. You need to have somebody doing your billing for you. You need to have other copywriters in your office or graphic artists in your office or other folks so that you can provide a complete package for your clients. Now, again, I've discussed this many times before. As a marketing agency, even a small agency, you can go find an unlimited supply of people to backfill once you have a consistent supply of clients. So your efforts need to focus 100% on client acquisition, building mailing lists of your own, connecting with people who regularly purchase copy or do direct response, and then start building out a pipeline in order to deliver regular work. And I don't mean to disappoint you if you were in this for the creative value, but creativity doesn't produce sales in the marketplace by itself. So we're graduating from copywriter. We're going into the 5-figure, 6-figure a month type earning, and we're backfilling the labor hours with administrative staff, editors, copywriters, graphic artists, so that we can provide for our clients a more complete package. Your role then becomes consultant rather than just copywriter. Now, you still need to know how to put words on the page. You still might do that because you can have a good $1 million plus 7-figure agency with just 1 or 2 people. The key to understand is that if you're going at this all by yourself, you're going to have this ebb and flow of work. You're going to be grinding away to get new clients. Then you're going to work the clients' projects, and then you're not going to have any clients, and then you're going to have to go out and find clients again. So that's why a lot of the big name copywriters have newsletters, membership sites. They have some sort of pipeline to keep folks involved. They're on the speaking circuit. So they're going out and they're speaking to audiences and picking up 4 or 5 copywriting assignments and putting them on the calendar. When they're away, here's a challenge I see a lot of freelancers. A lot of freelancers, when they're away on holiday, there's no income. With an agency model, you'll still have some income coming in because you might have residuals. You might have, and by the way, a residual is where you produce a piece of copy and then you get paid on a percentage of sales. So it's almost like a joint venture. It's not ideal, but it does allow you to have some passive income. You might have a situation where a client pays royalty. So you've written a kit. So maybe you've written 5 to 10 sales letters in a specific industry, and you bundle up some of those sales letters into a kit, and then you charge a licensing fee for those who are going to use the kit. A lot of people do that in dentistry. A lot of people do that in marketing, niche marketing, plumbing, electrical. I had a website, Commercial Electrical Profits, where I wrote some bundles of lead generation pieces that the clients could use, and they paid a royalty. They paid a monthly fee, and I'd add a new letter or a new piece to the sequence every month. So again, we're not talking about you just being out there all by yourself. That's part of the community here at Ad Briefings, is that we want to make sure there's a support network available so that as you grow and as you reach new levels, both in skills and in your ability to get clients, you'll be able to have that support necessary to do larger projects. Because what are you going to do if that one day you find that big client and they want 4 sales letters, they want to have a direct mail piece online, and also some of the sales letters are going to be scripts for some video, and they're like ready to go, $20,000 job, $100,000 job, and there's no way you're going to get it done. You're either busy with existing clients, or the time frame in which the client is looking for, you just don't have enough people in place. And if you've got to go out and find copywriters and build the relationships and figure out who can help you with this work, it's not going to get done. So what are the skills that you need to graduate from copywriter or marketer into either an agency model or more of a company rather than just you? Well, first off, the skill you need is to be able to manage people. You're going to need to be able to build a team, manage the work, the deliverables, and the people involved. You may not want to be a people manager, but again, we're looking for talent who are better than what you are at certain things. So for example, you write a big piece of sales copy, you want to hand that off to an editor. You're going to get a better result because the editor is going to look for things that you're not going to look for. You hand it off to an editor, and it has to be better than Grammarly. Grammarly's good, but you're handing this off to an editor. The editor is doing some of the processing, the formatting, the asking questions if there's some things that are unclear. You need to have a peer group, or a peer group in the audience that you're writing for, or a peer group in other copywriters who are experts in reaching that audience. Why do you do that? Well, that's going to get you some perspective on the piece before you put it in front of the client. Then when you put it in front of the client, you might have 3 or 4 clients going at the same time. So who's going to follow up on those clients to make sure each client is getting their pieces back on a reasonable amount of time? Worst thing you can do is write a piece of copy for a client. You've, of course, gotten 50% up front. You write a piece for a client, you put it in front of the client, and then they take like 3 months to review it and get back with you. See, that's the other half of your money waiting out there. They need to be able to turn that around in 7 days minimum, or maximum. It depends on how you're functioning, but in 7 days, they need to sign off on that piece of work, and you need to get paid. Well, are you cutting the invoice? See, it's not when you take an agency model or you start staffing your freelance copywriting, you're going to have at least an assistant to take care of the administrative stuff, and then to queue up the next copywriting assignment so that you can focus on doing what you do best. Now, there is going to be a point where you're going to need to train some people to help you out, because there's some continuity that's necessary. If you take a vacation, what's happening at the office? Well, you could have somebody at the office still running lead generation. And by the way, you don't have to have employees. You can have other freelance people working in your team, working together to get new clients. Now, I used to have, ad briefings used to be where I would hire a lot of my subscribers for different types of projects. So I was basically running an agency. I still run an agency, and I would go in and I'd get somebody who's just starting out, and they'd already have some experience in an audience, and then they would write up something and I would finish it before I gave it to the client. So they were doing my research, they were doing my initial drafts, and they were ultimately doing profiles. Now, all these things I had became a library. So all my past work, I've been doing this for like 20 something years. All my past work is like a library that I can reference to write new materials. So I don't need the freelance people as much, but it was a more profitable model. So do you have lists of good copywriters for specific areas? And rather than referring work to them, do you have a means of hiring them on, doing the job for the client, and owning the client themselves? So really, the agency model allows you to collect more clients, service them more consistently, and then ultimately deliver work on time that's been proofed well, that has a higher level of quality. Now, again, when you start an agency, you don't need fancy business cards. You don't need a fancy logo. You don't need a fancy gimmick for marketing the agency. You can still be yourself as the copywriter. But the efficiencies come with having an assistant, with having someone who's managing your calendar, basically, somebody who's going over your bookkeeping to make sure you're actually making money, and then some researchers and folks that you can work with in order to get the work done more complete, more clearly, and more accurately for the client's needs. It allows you to take more of a consultative role, so you can gather more information up front working with the client, and then ultimately delivering a larger package for a more profitable engagement. Now, when I say you could hire staff and you can have people support you with research, when you work with larger clients, those things you would just have the staff of the larger client do. So let's say you're working for a dentistry office and you're going to go around and interview hygienists about the benefits of doing business there. You're looking for stories. You're looking for the client, the dental patient's experience. You don't need to hire somebody to go research that on the internet. You can just ask the client people. That's part of the package. Now, again, all this stuff takes time. So you might have a written assessment for the dentist themselves, or an interview of the dentist and written assessment for their team. But ultimately, all that material comes together, goes in a binder, and is used as the fodder for writing the campaign for the particular client. If organizing that, if following up all that stuff is not your strength, then you get somebody to help you. So this is This is a graduation to agency. Now, you can go further in an agency. You could add copywriters, videographers. You can add all kinds of other people. But as an agency, you need to make sure you have a backlog of clients. Because if you've got an editor on staff, if you've got other people on staff, maybe you've got products of your own that they're building, they got to do something. You got to keep them busy because you're paying them. So I want you to think about this. I know a lot of folks out there are just freelance copywriters. There's nothing wrong with that. You can make a good living with that. The only thing is you're trading hours for dollars. And you only have so many hours in the day. If you want to scale to 7 figures, if you want to scale to more consistent income every month, then you're going to need to add at least an administrative assistant. Someone to handle your schedule, somebody to make sure that the pipeline keeps going, to make sure your lead generation pieces are going. But I've been in client work where I've added on, and I use freelancers, by the way, because freelancers are valuable. They just don't understand their own value, and so they're super cheap to hire. But I put 7, 10, 15 people on a project. My skill is managing that project from start to finish. Client communications, extracting from the client the details that are necessary to get the right work done, and then ultimately the strategy in the marketing. I can do that today with other copywriters. Actually, they're people like me 20 years ago who would do I'd write a couple, back in the day, I'd write a couple brochures, I'd write some sales letters, I'd write some follow-up letters, customer retention packages. And then eventually I got to the point where I got bigger and bigger jobs because I got known in the marketplace. I had a system for finding and generating leads. And then I ultimately had a way of onboarding people without me. So my assistant would onboard the people, and then I'd do the interview with them, and I'd write the copy, and then deliver the copy, and then my assistant would send the invoice. And basically I could focus on the elements that were most profitable and the elements that were most desired without the distraction of, holy crap, I haven't invoiced anybody and therefore I'm going to be not getting any money this month. Also, you're going to have clients that screw you over and they don't pay on time. So it's not something you want to be frustrated with when you could have an assistant take care of it, or you could have the bookkeeper, or not necessarily a CPA, but a bookkeeper can make those follow-up calls and send those letters. So I hope this has been helpful, folks. There's a point. There's nothing wrong with being a freelance copywriter, but it's kind of a starting point. And you start to shift to marketing consultant. And then in another program, we can talk about what it means to be a business development consultant. But a business development consultant is more on when you're already getting regular 5-figure contracts. So when I go into a company, I overhaul the company. I go through their accounting. I go through their marketing channels, audit their marketing plan. A lot of factors there are beyond the scope of what we can talk about here in like 15 minutes. But ultimately, don't stay a copywriter forever. Start building your team, even if the team is freelancers. And then from there, it gives you more consistency with your clients. It gives you a better flow of clients. I want to thank you for listening. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. You can ask your questions at www.adbriefings.co.uk. I hope I've shared something useful to you, and I'd love to hear your questions so that I can make sure I'm delivering the maximum value for your time. Thanks for listening.